Hey guys, I wanted to hop on and talk a little bit about Venezuela. Venezuela has some of the largest oil reserves in all of the world, and so that leads some people to suggest that any involvement by the U.S. in the region is about oil, because that seems to be what everybody thinks about, our involvement with Iraq and the fact that we have such a close relationship or always have had a close relationship with Saudi Arabia. It's all about oil. And with Venezuela, the Trump administration is saying that they don't like Maduro and they don't want the narco state of Venezuela to be able to funnel drugs up through their country and into the United States. So we've shot, you know, at a couple of ships, and we have a show of force in the area that concerns Maduro and others, and so much so that he has said that he's willing to fight a prolonged guerrilla style war if we try to like invade or whatever. So people are speculating about what it's all about, and people are concerned. But I wanted to kind of like talk about it a little bit after a video here of a German news site speaking with a South American, a person with an NGO from South America who knows a little bit about the situation.
U.S. officials say the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier strike group has arrived in Latin America amid heightened tensions between the United States and Venezuela. The addition of the world's largest warship to an already massive naval buildup is fueling speculation about the Trump administration's true intentions in the region. Washington says its mission is to stop drug trafficking groups. The United States claims that smugglers have links to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Maduro denies the accusations and claims that the U.S. military buildup is intended to oust him from power. I'm now joined by Renata Segura. She's the Latin America and Caribbean Program Director with the NGO, the International Crisis Group. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So Donald Trump has repeatedly said that he wants to fight the regional drug mafia, not topple the Venezuelan government. But President Maduro accuses Trump of, quote, fabricating a war. Is Caracas really preparing itself for an invasion?
I mean, Caracas is taking this very seriously. The amount of military might that the U.S. has moved to the Caribbean certainly seems disproportionate for the type of actions that they have taken against the vessels that allegedly are bringing drugs. So Maduro is, with all reason, very worried about this and has mobilized a popular militia to try and face any possible intervention militarily in the country.
As you were saying there, we've seen the United States bring warships, combat aircraft, missiles, and elite troops in the Caribbean, now the world's largest aircraft carrier. How does that play in countries in the region?
Everybody's looking at this with a lot of uncertainty and worry because this is in violation of international law. This signals an interventionist approach that we had not seen in Latin America in a very long time. And everybody is really worried that if today is Venezuela, tomorrow it could be them. At the same time, it's a little bit difficult for the region to stand up and defend Maduro, somebody who stole the elections of last year, who has overseen one of the most serious humanitarian catastrophes in the continent and has repeatedly violated the human rights of its citizens. That doesn't mean, obviously, that by any means the region is supportive overall, although some governments might be allied with Trump, but it's not supportive of any military intervention. It's very, very worrisome for the region overall.
Now, in the past, the United States had been accused of riding roughshod over Latin America. So if there would be an invasion, what exactly would that mean for the United States' reputation in the region?
It would be really catastrophic. It would be really turning back decades of cooperation, both on anti-narcotics, but also in other, in trade and other ways in which they.
Okay, so I want to reject that outright. Like, what kind of cooperation have they given exactly? And not just Venezuela, but other South American countries, that they turn a blind eye when drugs get funneled up through to the United States. So some are saying, "Hey, this has nothing to do with fentanyl." I thought it was all about fentanyl. I thought Trump wanted to stop fentanyl from coming in the country, and fentanyl's not coming from Venezuela. And that may be true, but maybe it's about more than just drugs exactly, and it's about sending a message, and it's about oil, and it's about corruption. It can be about more than one thing, obviously.
The US is closely related to the region. The reality, though, is that it seems unlikely that we're going to see boots on the ground. Probably what we're going to be seeing is military attacks from air, which is what the Trump administration seems to favor. Even though the military might is fairly big right now in the Caribbean, we will need many more men than what are mobilized right now. So it seems certainly unlikely that we will be seeing a ground invasion in the short term. But obviously, nothing can be discounted absolutely.
Now, how exactly would you explain the Trump administration's obsessiveness with Venezuela? This can't just be an issue of drug smuggling, can it?
It really is not an issue of drug smuggling. By all means, Venezuela is a country through which drugs come through, but it's not certainly the biggest producer or trafficker of cocaine or fentanyl by any means. This really is closely related with Marcos Rubio's obsession with overthrowing Maduro, which is something that comes really from an ideological stance, something that Trump tried to do during his first term, and that now they see the possibility of getting Maduro out. I think that the way in which they're framing this, which is a fight against narco-terrorism, is really a way to make sure that the MAGA base internally in the U.S. goes with the idea of having a military intervention in a country, which is something that really clashes with what Trump had promised during his campaign. So I think the intentionality behind it is really ideological, but they're framing it around narco-terrorism because they think this is something that will be more palatable for Americans.
All right.
And I think she's actually correct on this. It's not so much that I expect Trump to invade Venezuela and then overthrow the government and then, have good relations with the next regime, good trade on oil and such. I think it's about wanting to overthrow that regime, but have them do it themselves. I think the U.S. is trying to intimidate and trying to cause the Venezuelan people in power who might be in a position to turn in Maduro or overthrow Maduro. I think that's what it's about. Try to get them to get rid of this guy and have a more friendly regime in place. And then the United States would get the benefits of better relations, better trade, and we would maybe go in and help them rebuild the infrastructure for their oil that they've completely, like Hugo Chavez and now Maduro, have completely decimated their oil production. They have some of the best reserves sitting underneath them in the whole world, but they can't get the oil out at a reasonable rate. So I think that's what it's about. I think that they've even come out and offered $50 million rewards to people in his inner circle to try to get him arrested or get him get a hold of Maduro. And the problem is that these people that are close to Maduro are all corrupt, and they're making billions collectively. In some cases, individuals are making billions just by taking bribes. Like, they take oil that they label as used oil that needs to be sent up. Actually, I think to Texas, actually, needs to be sent up and recycled, but in reality, it's just fresh oil. So then they just slap a new label on it. They've got it for pennies on the dollar, and the people in Venezuela who shipped it out, they're making billions or whatever off of it. So there's a lot of corruption there, and I think Trump is trying to clean that up. I think he is concerned about the drugs. I think he is concerned about getting rid of Maduro and having more friendly relations. And I do think she's right that framing it as trying to get rid of a narco state is more palatable for people. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure why. You know, I mean, these guys have been bad actors forever, for not forever, but for a very long time. And so if you were to go to the people and just say, "Hey, listen, we're going to, you know, I guess you couldn't, I guess he's not the kind like here, he'll tell you. He's not going to tell you his plans. He's not going to tell you what he's going to do. He literally says it. Watch this. Well, if it'll play. Well, anyway, had an interview here, and they were asking him if he's going to put troops on the ground, and he's like, "Why would I tell you? Why would I tell a reporter that?" You know. But yeah, I think ultimately, I don't think he's going to send troops in. I think he's hoping, he's kind of bluffing here, and he'll just see how they react before he makes another move. Because Trump is he's pretty flexible on stuff like this. Like he'll zig and zag when he'll move, bob and weave or whatever when he needs to. And so if there's not a climate where he thinks it'd be advantageous for him to push any farther, then he won't. But if he thinks he can push the right buttons to get the regime overthrown, that's what he's going to try to do. You know what I mean? Now it's fun to play, but it's too late, buddy. Okay, well, anyway, that's my thoughts on the Venezuela situation. I think that one caveat to all of this is if there was an invasion, even a small one by U.S. troops, that's like the worst case scenario for us, because I think that could lead Russia to kind of get involved and back Venezuela even more than they already do. And they might use it as like a proxy war to divert our attention away from Ukraine and in China and other stuff, and get us bogged down in Venezuela. So we definitely don't want that at all. Trump and the administration, they're smart enough to realize all this. Like I said, they're just posturing and trying to get the Venezuelan people to overthrow their own regime. And, I think ultimately, if that does happen, it would be best for everybody except for the people in power now, obviously, in Venezuela. But, that's the kind of thing where I'm not sure what kind of intelligence we might have on the ground, or what kind of ability we would have to actually make this stuff happen. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. If it did happen and we had a friendly government in there, then maybe we could work something out to where we would have less dependence on oil in the Middle East. So we would be able to like hedge our bets and all that way, and that'd be great. But the United States history of overthrowing regimes is kind of a black spot on our history. You know what I mean? Like it's not something that we have been very good at in the past. So I understand, I guess, thinking about it in that way, I understand why Trump and the administration wouldn't want to broach that topic in that way. They would want to talk about them as a narco state, which frankly they kind of are, the way they always turn their back on what's going on in their backyard. But anyway, thank you for listening. Hope you learned something out of this, and like and subscribe. Have a good day.